Gino's East is one of Chicago's most famous deep dish pizza places. They've been open since 1966. And there are still some people who don't realize Gino's East is here in LA now too. And let me tell you, it feels like you're in Chicago when you're in there. I know, I'm in there a lot. And during the week, Gino's has a happy hour from 3 to 6, Monday through Thursday. Get $5 drinks like Stella and Dark Horse Chardonnay. Also, $6 eats like spinach artichoke dip, garlic breadsticks, and a jumbo bowl of fries. There's so much great stuff on the menu. I always have a difficult time deciding what to order at Gino's. My go-to is probably the tavern pizza, cheese and sausage. You know what? Everything is my go-to there. Deep dish, the Italian beef, you name it. Everything on that menu is fantastic. Gino's East of Chicago and Los Angeles was named Best Pizza in the Southland by LA Times readers 2 years in a row. It's more than just a Chicago restaurant. It's one of the best restaurants in LA. Check out the friendly confines of Gino's East LA today on the corner of Coldwater Canyon and Riverside Drive, just off the 101. See you there.
Sit back and relax. It's time for peanuts, popcorn, and Cracker Jacks.
Hey, how's it going? I'm your host, Jeff Santo, and I'm here with my wife, Christy.
Hello, hello. So you got some mail.
Yes.
So this is from Bruce Harris. And he says, "Hi, Jeff.
Hey.
I've been enjoying your PPC podcast. Great stuff. Thanks for all you do. To say I'm a huge fan of your dad is an understatement. My story is a little different, though, however. I grew up in New York, but love the Cubs.
Wow.
I took a lot of verbal abuse from my friends and family members.
I bet you did.
I had a large poster of your dad on my bedroom wall. Despite how things worked out, I wouldn't trade living through that incredible 1969 season for anything. I was 15 at the time.
Holy moly.
I blame Leo, by the way, but that's for a different day. I loved all the players, but there was something really very special about your dad. I watched every Mets game on television that year. I was at Shea Stadium when Tom Seaver was perfect for 8 1/3 innings.
Wow.
I think I was the only one in the stands who clapped when Jimmy Qualls' ball fell in for a base hit.
Right, Jimmy Qualls.
I also attended many games at Shea, including several against the Cubs. I still have this greasy hot dog paper plate that your dad, along with Ken Holtzman, Glenn Beckert, Oscar Gamble, and others signed. Your dad was always so generous with the fans. Not everyone was. He was such a huge part of my life, a positive influence on me. Gritty, tough, competitive, and in a word, professional.
Right.
The Yiddish word is mensch. That's your dad. I'm a proud grandfather now, but hardly a day goes by when I don't think about that magical 1969 Cubs team, and specifically your dad. The team and number 10 will always have a special place in my heart. Watching Williams, Santo, and Banks, there was never a doubt in my mind that I was watching 3 Hall of Famers. Take care, best, Bruce Harris. P.S.
Bruce.
Have you tried to interview any of the 1969 Mets for the podcast?
Interesting.
Art Shamsky, Ron Sabota, Leon Jones. Might be fun.
I'm all right. Ron Swoboda, Cleon Jones, definitely. I got to get them. So anyone out there, track them down. Definitely want them on the podcast. But that's an amazing story, Bruce. I mean, to live in New York and cheer for the Cubs at 15, that's a lot of guts.
That's a lot of bravery. Yes.
Unbelievable. And I saw that paper plate. It was a greasy spoon paper plate, and there's my dad's autograph right in the middle of it.
Yeah.
It's amazing, man. Thank you for that story. Thank you for sharing that, Bruce. Very cool. Glad you survived it. Are you still a Cubs fan?
Of course he is.
Yeah,
yes.
He's got to be, right? I mean, there's no way turning back now. I mean, but and he doesn't regret one moment cheering for the 69 Cubs. Wow, that's pretty powerful.
Thanks for listening.
Yeah. Wow, I got to say, I was talking to my buddy Jim McCauley about the slumping Cubs right now.
You're talking to me about it too.
Yeah, I was, but I came in after him and I was a little heated because the conversation, you just can't help but getting heated. A lot of good points brought up, but I just feel like the consistency in baseball today is lacking.
Well, there's overthinking going on. You were talking about the statistics
Right.
and how they're getting these iPads.
Well, there's just too much information, I believe, right? And we discussed a few things. First of all, the manager, we paid a lot of money for counsel, and I get it, they went for it, but he's making similar choices that literally you could put a computer manager in there. If you're going by analytics, I just want to say this. I know it's not going to be popular, but I don't care, okay? Because you take Assad out in that inning. When it's first and third, he's got one out. He just struck out the guy. He got 2 outs. We're a tie ball game. I think it was the bottom of the 6th. And he brings in a lefty against a lefty, and boom, base double down the line, 2 runs, 2 more runs. We lose that game. But I could see it in Assad's face, taking him out. You're taking guys out, your best pitchers, your starting pitchers, because you're nervous that they can't get that guy out. They need to get that guy out. There's no one with more will to get a guy out, the guy who started it and wants to end, keeping his team alive. And I just think...
Yeah, it's almost like Bruce Harris has more bravery as a fan than, Counsell has as a manager.
Yeah, I don't like it.
We need to have bravery in management. Put your starters out there. Let them go. I would love to see more complete games.
Yeah, there's not going to get complete games. I just like to see pitchers going past the 7th, all right?
At least.
Yeah, but they're not. But I would also like to see, we talked about, Jim brought it up to me, like, it seems like when they get to the third round of the order, coming through 3 times, they get nervous. Like it's the third time they're coming through the order. Hey, back when I had Fergie on, and Fergie said, Gibson, we all got better later in the game. If you didn't get us early, they're going to be in for a duel, right? I mean, you get better as the game goes on. They're not letting pitchers get better as the game goes on. They're getting nervous about pitchers going further into the game. And don't think that they don't sense it, right? And
I think the game today is different than it was back then.
Of course it's
different. Hold on, we got sirens.
I don't care we got sirens. So this is an emergency right now that we're talking about. So, but I want to say, though, is that I feel like baseball's putting itself in a box more and more. And if you got players looking at their iPads after an at bat, it's too much information, man. You get up to the plate, you can't think, you got to react. You got to be good enough to know, okay. And I just feel like if those iPads were helping, why are you hitting 202? Why are you hitting 230? Why are you hitting 220? Why are you hitting 180? The average literally for Major League Baseball average in the National League, American League, it's got to be the lowest it's ever been in the history of the game. And I just think that's not helpful.
And they took away
game.
the shift, so it can't be that.
It's not that. It's too much information, and I feel like everyone's using this information, and now we have to put a halt to it. And I think one other thing that I'd like to bring up.
Can I respond?
Please.
So I think we have a problem. The same problem we have in baseball is the same problem we have with our youth.
Okay.
And I think that there's way too much pressure and a lot of overthinking and a lot of analytics and a lot of just, analyzing and
just live.
It's just do it. Just, keep practicing your craft, your skills, and then just get out there and just relax and do it.
Right. In baseball, it is probably the sport where you have so much dead time to think, right? Mm-hmm. Time to think. And you got to go back there and almost kind of like meditate. You got to look at a computer or an iPad and look. It's too much, man. Take a breath.
If you think about it, if you're constantly reviewing your mistakes, you're living in your errors.
That's true.
So I think there's a time and place to go over your analytics, and maybe, after the game or maybe a weekly thing. I don't know when it is, but during the game, it's too much negativity that you're putting into the player.
And I just think the consistency overall of a ball player, it's gone down. And I think those older players, and I'll talk with my guest about consistency, Chris Chelios, man, I can't wait. What a story he has. And you just look at the consistency he had as a hockey player. And my dad, striking out 100 times, but walking 100 times, having an on-base percentage of over 400. I mean, that's the Moneyball type of player, but we're almost surpassing Moneyball, and we're going on the decline, right? And you got to get that consistency back. And I think that consistency is endurance. It's being able to get through pressurized situations. And if you're going to take your starters out in the most pressurized situation of the game, that's not giving them much confidence to do it again and again and again. So I just think that something is lacking, the overall creed.
Well, these teams are putting so much into this analytics and all this statistics and all this stuff. But
Yeah.
where's the on-team psychologist?
Yeah.
Fighting for the mental health of these players. And I'm not talking about the mental health as far as, the outside world. I'm talking about mental health from the back of the house, trying to tell them what, they need to be thinking about when they're in the game. Let's let them be in the game.
Yeah, and I don't know who's managing the team. I thought when Council got in there, it was him, and now I'm wondering now, like, what's going on. And nothing against him, man. I'm rooting for him. I'm rooting for my Cubbies, but I've never seen such a slump in the middle of a season when you have a good ball club. It seems something's off, and we're trying to figure out what it is, but overall in the league, I think something's off, and let the guys play. And, I always thought this too. Get some speedsters, get some guys that get contact base hits. Let's see that team come into play, because if one team just went with just gritty guys that get on base and get some good pitching, they're going to beat the power hitting teams because they're going to be more consistent.
Let me ask you, why did you never go into coaching?
I don't know. At that point in time, baseball, the dream was out, and I didn't see that as a dream for some reason. I saw it more as like, just I need to get away from it. So I don't know. I just didn't.
Yeah.
It wasn't my calling, but I like being more of a couch kind of coach now. Hey, I'm not saying what I'm saying is right all the time, but I do have a gut feeling about baseball. It's inside me, and I'm just seeing like the players. I don't know what it is. Maybe you say it's a lack of passion, but it's a lack of like, I know they're trying out there, but something's off. Just take away all the gadgets, man. Go out there and play.
And this is also our Father's Day episode, because this comes out before Father's Day.
Happy Father's Day to everybody.
So,
yeah.
Go out and get your dad something at Wrigleyville Sports and use that code Santo10 at checkout.
Santo10, Wrigleyville Sports. We got a great show,
shop on
though.
Sano Films, and absolutely have a great Father's Day weekend.
Happy Father's Day. Enjoy the show. This podcast is brought to you by Bernie's Tap and Grill. It's family owned and operated since 1954. Located across from Wrigley Field on Clark and Waveland. My dad hit a few home runs on the Waveland Avenue, and Bernie's was my dad's favorite place to go. It's got delicious food, 4 full-service bars, an awesome beer garden, a sidewalk patio cafe, and a cool upstairs area. It's the place I've always met my friends at before and after games. Go on by and tell Linda Dillman Jeff Santos sent you. Bernie's Tap and Grill, where you go when you go to Wrigley. Next, I want to talk to you about Wrigleyville Sports. If you've been to Wrigley Field in the last 30 years, you know who I'm talking about. On the corner of Addison and Sheffield, the green and white awning that beckons you to buy Cubs gear and souvenirs. Here's some history for you. This is a small, family-owned business that has been around since 1990. They're celebrating their 34th anniversary this year, and 3 generations of Karlstrom family have worked there. Wow, gotta love that. You know what else I love? They have an authentic 1969 Ron Santo Cubs jersey. And check this out. They're giving our listeners a special discount. Use the code SANTO10 at checkout and get 10% off your order. Shop online or in the store. They get new arrivals daily from brands you know and love like New Era, Obvious Shirts, and more. They have a wide selection of jerseys from iconic players like my dad to custom jerseys with their very own name. And free shipping on orders of $60 or more. And they sell more than just Cubs merch. Get gear from all your favorite teams, including the Bears, Blackhawks, Bulls, and even the White Sox. Hey, we're one family. We're Chicago. Go to WrigleyvilleSports.com and use Santo10 at the checkout. Go get your dad a Ron Santo jersey for Father's Day with using Santo10 at the checkout. Wrigleyville Sports, for the city, for the fans.
Hail Hail Auctions is Chicago's premier partner for rocking your fundraising goals. If your organization is looking for rockstar solutions to raise big money to support your amazing mission, you need Hail Hail Auctions. Whether it's providing a superstar MC or a killer licensed auctioneer to help plan your amazing event, they strategize everything from one-of-a-kind auction items to big-time sponsorship acquisitions. In Chicago, or anywhere in the U.S., if you want to maximize your fundraising, go to hailhailauctions.com and be sure to say Santo sent you for a complimentary consultation.
Yeah, Santos sent you. Ron Jr. or myself, Jeff, we've known Chris for quite some time now, and we vouch for him 100%. Chris is a go-get-it-done type of guy, and he's fun too. So you'll have a good time raising money for worthy causes. Go get it done with Chris now.
The consultation is 100% free when you mention the podcast. So what are you waiting for? Hail Hail Auctions is where money raised is love saved.
You got that right.
My special guest today is a hockey legend. More than some say, he's the greatest American hockey player ever. A Hall of Famer, he won 3 Stanley Cups, 3 Norris Awards. He was on 4 Olympic teams, captained 3 of them. He played in 3 different decades, in 3 different cities, Montreal, Chicago, and Detroit. And on February 25th this year, my father's birthday, by the way, his number 7 was retired by the Chicago Blackhawks, the 9th Blackhawk in the history of the franchise to have that honor. I was lucky enough to be at Randy Huntley's baseball fantasy camp over a decade ago to celebrate his 50th birthday playing baseball, just after he retired from his God-given sport of hockey at the age of 48. He's a hell of a catcher, too, and a wonderful human being. Chris Chelios, it's so good to have you on the show, man.
Hey, thank you, Jeff. That's a great introduction.
I got to say, man, I have to say this, Chris. If there's one American hockey player story to be told on the big screen or the little screen, you can go either way with it today, movie or TV series, it's your hockey tale that should be told. Starting with the $5 pair of skates purchased by your mom at Ace Hardware, where you learned how to skate at a place called Candy Cane Park in a blue-collar neighborhood in Chicago. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, there's absolutely no reason in the world that I should have played hockey, quite honestly, especially growing up in the neighborhood I did. It's not like it was – no one from my neighborhood really played, organized hockey or, on a team. We just skated in the winters when they froze the park. And,
right.
And that was it. And then we just kicked it into baseball season. And, I think just because my dad had met some of the Blackhawks, he was bartending, and he actually met your father and the Cubs. They were, frequenting his restaurants and bars, and they started giving him tickets. And my dad fell in love with the game, and there was, my mom who, got the courage to bring me to that hardware store and give me those skates to get me going. So yeah, it's just that time, that era. The amount of Americans playing, there just wasn't really a norm.
No, man. And the culture's different, right? It's blue collar. It's similar to my father's story, man. Both you guys have just this will inside you, and you in hockey, because like you said, not many people got on skates, right? And could perfect that. I know that I got scared shitless on skates when the first time I went out in an organized league in the park here and someone flattened me. I said, this isn't fun, especially, when you can't stand up, and for you to do it, I got chills when you talked about that in your speech when the Blackhawks retired, your number 7 in February. It was so cool to see your mom witness your complete journey. I mean, the sacred moment that caps everything off. It's just to see her face. I teared up almost, man. It's like, wow. I mean, how's she doing today right now, by the way?
Well, it's crazy, but it was one of these things where, 3 months before she couldn't go to my son's wedding because she was bedridden. And then, she goes through these phases where she's perfect and then she's, bedridden. So just lucky we got her on every single vitamin pack and IVs and loaded her full of everything possible to get her strong and get her ready for that weekend. And you mentioned, for me, that was the most important thing. I wish my dad would have been alive to, experience that and see his name go up in the rafters. But, to have one of your parents at my age, you're still real fortunate. Obviously, you lost your father too at a young age. So when we talk about it every time, my mom wishes he could have seen it. She wishes, he could have been a great grandpa. So, like I said, that was for me, that was the most important thing to that's why my mom was in the car with me and not my wife, driving on the ice. It all started with her, not to take away from my wife. Obviously, she played a huge role,
of course,
in my career. But it was special. And, for my family, I think, and my friends that weekend and what the Blackhawks did for me, I'll cherish it for the rest of my life. To get your jersey retired is one thing, but to get it retired in the town where you grew up in, that's pretty damn special.
It sure is. And you and Buckus are the only two. You said that, which is amazing, right? You two from Chicago are the ones with the numbers retired, and you both came out of the same high school. I know you had such a closeness with Dick, and I saw you at the Cub game the other day doing the seventh inning stretch and dedicating it to him. I mean, you have such special ties all along the way of your journey.
Yeah, and I played a lot of years, and that was one of the perks that I got to meet Dick Buckus at a charity golf tournament that the Bears were doing over on the south side. And we're from the same neighborhood, and you talked about it earlier, the blue collar neighborhood. That was another reason. Hockey, even back in the late '60s, was a pretty expensive sport. And no one could afford, to the travel, the hotel, the equipment, the ice. So that was a big factor also. And we didn't have a lot of money, but every dime my dad made, was my poor sisters took it on the chin. And women back in that day, they really didn't have our opportunity like they do now. So,
right.
He was spending most of the money, trying to get me to the best rinks and wearing the best equipment and playing in the most competitive levels. So. And Dick, football, baseball, these are sports that are free. Every school has them, and you have the opportunity to do that. And I was so honored and thankful I met Dick, back in the 90s. It just so happened that I started, vacationing out in California, and Dick's, he just happened to live in Malibu, and we met, like I mentioned, at that golf tournament in Chicago, and he invited me, to his place when I got to Malibu, and the rest was history. I got to meet his family, his son Matt quite often, his other son Ricky, and his wife Helen, his high school sweetheart. It's a storybook, Buckus, of his whole life, and his brothers, and now his nephews are coaching in the NFL, and they're just a terrific family.
You're right. You're with that generation before us, Buckus, my dad, and then our generation. I mean, it's. We're different, but it's still similar. Like today is so different now, right? It doesn't even match with those two generations of what you have to go through. And the journeys are, a lot of struggle on the journeys. You don't know if you're going to get there, and a lot of divine intervention, which I feel like you had in your story. Your story is so inspiring. It lives in its own time and place in such a special way, covers 4 decades. You'll never see a journey like that again, definitely with an American hockey player. And it's about, what's so cool is that you mentioned your family. It's about family love. You had family struggle. You had culture. And then with the divine intervention where you grew 2 inches like when you're not supposed to grow anymore. I mean,
wow.
Yeah,
it's bizarre. Like, I don't know what that phrase was, but again, if you have no, I'm looking for that word, no expectations, and there's not any disappointments, it's something to that effect. So, I loved hockey. I loved baseball even more. It's not that I ever really thought that I was going to be a pro hockey player or a pro baseball. Yeah, I would have loved to, but realistically, my size, being from the south side of Chicago, there weren't a whole lot of athletes coming out of there at that time. Mostly because of the money thing. You just couldn't afford to do that, most families. So I was very fortunate that I got sponsored in high school and to go play at Mount Carmel by a fellow named Pat Doyle. There wasn't a lot at the time, $800 compared to what it is now, but it was still a lot of money. So, I'm appreciative to all my friends and family along the way that, helped me get to where I did. But trust me, it was a fluke.
Hey, you know what? You say that though, but it can't be. I mean, you can't last 26 seasons. It has to go back to your family and your upbringing. Like you talked about, your dad wasn't there, and I know you were missing him there, and you could just tell. And talk about your dad a little bit, man. He had restaurants. You guys are Greek. What was his influence on you?
I mean, 2 things: hard work and his passion for life.
Right.
But he lived he probably thought he was Zorba the Greek. I'm sure you've seen that movie at one point in your life. But he lived, he celebrated for every day like was his last. And he didn't get cheated. I know 84 is not terribly old, but that's a pretty good run, and he was healthy right up to the last 3 months, and like I said, when you met him, you knew he was in the room. He was loud, obnoxious, all those things. But a great dad, great parent, and a great husband. So like I said, when you'd have to meet him to know. Like I said, he was, and he had his moments, and he's that nightmare dad at games, and he got kicked out of the rink as a parent, and so I learned, not what to do with my kids from my father. But again,
of course, it's every generation, right? Gets a little better.
Yeah, I'll leave it at that. I don't want to kick him while he's, not here to defend
No.
himself.
Oh, I could see the love, man. And you talked about hanging out at his restaurants. Now, did you get that toughness? Like, were you a fighter as a kid?
No. Like I said, I was small, and I kept my mouth shut. I love, boxing. I was in intramural boxing. So at that point, you're 115 pounds. You don't have to worry about too much because you're fighting someone your age. But no, it all started when I got to Canada, and I was the only American in the league. And I got challenged, and it was tough at first. And I know a lot of guys that quit because of that. It just, you had no choice but to fight at that time. And, I learned, I learned the hard way, and I started hitting a heavy bag. And like you mentioned earlier, I grew those 2 inches, put on, 10, 15 pounds. And, not that I was a heavyweight by no means, but for my weight category and being, the south side of Chicago kind of kicked in. Like everybody wanted to be Dick Butkus, right? And that's how every kid acted on the football field, on the baseball field. So that kicked in, and I just all of a sudden I was always tough. I mean, I wasn't mean, and it just became a way of surviving up in Canada, and that's pretty much how it happened. I was a forward, my whole life until I got there too. So once I got switched to defense, you had to hit more, you had to be more aggressive, and fighting became part of it also.
Right. And I have to say, you left Chicago at 15, which is pretty traumatic for a family to pack it up back, and move the whole family out west. And, you're a thoughtful man, and you've got a laid back side to you. Was that because you actually moved to California? Do you think that brought a little something else to you?
Well, after going to an all-boys Catholic school for 2 years, high school, and then coming to California and being on a campus with, like, from 7th grade to 12th and girls, it was a whole new thing. I started surfing immediately. My hockey career basically ended twice. I don't know if you call it a career when you're a kid, but we moved to Australia, and that was supposed to be a permanent move, and it ended up, falling apart, and we moved back. And then moving to California, I just assumed that was it for hockey for me. I skated because there was a rink, pretty close to my house, but it was all guys like senior league and, those beer and pizza leagues, and not no one, my age anyway, any competitive hockey at my age. So, again, I wasn't expecting to play pro hockey. So when I thought it was over out in San Diego, I just continued to move on and get interested in other things like biking, and which kept me in shape, and mountain. I ran a lot in the mountains and did a lot of things that kept me in shape until that, I got that that one day where I met that kid on the beach, and it changed my life. Yeah,
let me. So you played in like a beer league, and you're basically 17 years old. So you're playing with older guys. So you're getting used to the older guy thing and the toughness, just to kind of just still compete. You said you moved to Australia?
Yeah, my dad had this idea that, he just had a restaurant go bad, and he had a friend that was living in Greece that was supplying it was Vietnam War back then. He was supplying the U.S. troops with their dairy and their meat. So he picked up, I'll never forget, my dad and my grandpa were building these wood crates, about 5 by 4 foot, packing all our stuff. We drove across from Chicago to San Francisco in a Cadillac with 5 kids and all the clothes, a trunk filled, and then jumped on a boat for 17 days and took a boat from San Francisco to Australia. It was insane. And I remember it. I was old enough. I think I was 8 years old. I remember, everything about the trip, and, all of a sudden we're out there and things are going great, but the war ended and my dad was left holding the bag. And that was it. My mom said, "You're full of, you know what?" And I'm taking the kids back home. And he left, she left him there. I think it took him 2-3 months to get everything packed up, again and come back, to the U.S. and back to the same house with his tail between his legs.
Oh, wait, did your mom take you back on a boat or did you fly?
No, we flew TWA through one of the worst flights I've probably been on in my life. I watched my brother, bounce out of it. He was like, I think a year and a half, 2 years old. My mom had gone to the bathroom or something, probably smoke a cigarette, and he was bouncing down the aisle from the turbulence, my kid, my brother. So it was a trip from hell. It was smoke-filled TWA flight. Never forget it.
That's crazy, man. I mean, just think about that journey. I mean, so then you go back to Chicago, then you take off to California?
Yeah, played another couple of years, 4 years of youth hockey. Played Mount Carmel at high school, played for the Chicago Saints, St. Jude Knights, and then at 15, again, my dad had some hardship with some restaurant, owed a lot of money, and we had to get out of there, so we started another restaurant in California, and, at that point in your life, you have no choice. At 15, I couldn't stay, and, again, that one hurt. Like, the first move to Australia, I didn't care. I was so young, and hockey wasn't really a thing, but when I was 15, I was, deep into hockey. I loved playing. I just won a championship and a state championship. And I knew that was, that was what should have been the end.
Wow, man. I mean, that's crazy. And then you win that state championship, and now you got to go and start all over again. And that's why your journey is so amazing. Like I'm starting to understand how you played 26 years because you went through hell to get there. So now you talked about going to California, and I noticed you talked about his name, Bobby Parker.
Yeah.
How was he so significant in your journey there, man?
I mean, I was trying out after I graduated high school. I was trying out for this new team. It was called United States International University, and literally 15 minutes from my house. And they started a program, which would have been my freshman year of college. So I went, tried out for the team, enrolled in school as a walk-on, but got cut from the team. So I continued to go to school there, figuring, okay, now I'm really done. My career's over now. I'm going to focus on school. I'm going to get a business degree and go on from there. So I think about 3-4 months go by, and I was on the beach surfing with my buddies from high school, and I'll be damned if I don't see that the university team was training on the beach. And one of the kids, Bobby Parker, was paired up with me in the tryout. He waved to me, and I walked over and said hi to him, and he asked me where I was playing. I said I was done. And he goes, God, you're good enough to play up in the leagues in Canada. And I said, I tried that last year, and I got cut from 4 or 5 teams, so I don't, and I don't have any money to go up there to. He goes, well, here's the phone number of the coach. He hands me, get a pen and paper. Just give him a call and see if they need any players. So I gave the coach, Larry Billows, a call. He said, you'll have to fly your own way up. We're not going to pay. And I said, well, I can't do that. So I gave him my phone number. I said, well, if something changes, call me. Well, they lost about 4 games in a row. He called me. He goes, okay, we'll fly you up. What position you play? I said, well, what do you need? He goes, defenseman. I said, well, I'm a defenseman. And that's when I turned into a defenseman. So, and I could see in the disappointment when I landed, he picked me up at the airport, and he took one look at me, and because of my size, I could tell he was just disappointed. But, I went up there, I sat a couple games, watched, and then it was, my chance. Someone screwed up, and I got in there, first shift, scored, and then he came up to me and said, do you know how to fight? I said, I've never really been in a fight, maybe 2 in my whole life on the ice. He goes, well, you're going to have to fight if you're going to play in this league. So I go out and get in the fight and get my ass kicked, and, I went after the guy a period later and did pretty good. So, the rest was history. This guy gave me every chance in the world to succeed, and it worked out unbelievable, obviously.
That's wow, man. Now tell me when you grew. Where was that? What was the time that you grew? I remember you said you.
Yeah, right during that first year in Moose Jaw. I went to Moose Jaw. That's where it was, and I literally started growing. And I came back that summer. My mom and I grew hair on my chest, and then I continued to grow that 2 full inches. From the time I went to Moose Jaw, I was 5'10", and by the time I left Moose Jaw to go to the University of Wisconsin, I was 6 foot. So again, timing was everything. I was a late bloomer. My sons were late bloomers also, and they got to be like 6'2" and 6'3". So it was one of those things, and it happens a lot to especially Americans, because they don't have that chance to develop in between. There's nowhere to go when you graduate high school to play, and until they started these junior leagues where you can go there until you're ready for university. So
right.
It just, like I said, I got really lucky that I was able to get to Moose Jaw and grow for those 2 seasons.
That's amazing. Now, you talked about actually you had to take a bus ride home from Canada, thinking you were going to quit. Where was that in all this?
That was after my first year going up to Canada. That was my junior year of high school. The year before I went to Moose Jaw, it was a junior year of high school. And that's when I flew all the way to Montreal, tried out for a team in Hawkesbury, Chatham, Windsor, and I just kept taking Greyhound buses from spot to spot. I ended up in Detroit with no money, stuck in the Greyhound bus station, and I borrowed some money from these guys in the bus station, promising them I would give them the money when I got back to San Diego and got a job. And these guys got off in Utah, and it turned out these guys own the property where Leonard Skinner's plane crashed. Bizarre. Just wow. Yeah. So when I got back, I got a job, and 3 months later, I sent them whatever it was, $150, $200 for a ticket from Detroit to San Diego.
Okay, so that's before you met Bobby on the beach. So now you go back, kind of. I got you. And then you still like, okay, you were going to quit them, but you're like, I'll give it another shot. You go, and then you meet Bobby, and then you go out and you grow, and now from there, it's just the traveling in your journey here, man, the ups and downs. And how did you like tell yourself, like, all right, I'm going to give it another shot? What made you go after you met Bobby, like, okay, I'm going to do this, instead of saying, screw it, I'm done with it?
I mean, I really had nothing else going on. I was playing catch up, to graduate from the year before, because I'd left and missed about, a month and a half of school. And ironically, Bobby Parker actually got homesick when he was playing for that university team. And he ended up coming back. But my first season, he ended up coming back and being my partner for 2 more years. So, and he was convincing. He told me that I was good enough, when I'd met him. And he didn't know I was going to go up there and play defense, but he knew I could skate and I had good skill. I was just small.
When you say partner, like partner on the ice of like,
yeah, we ended up being defensive partners. Yeah, one of the pairs for almost 2 years. So, and again, I had nothing going. I was working in the restaurant with my dad also there. And at that point in my life, I was getting sick of working with my dad. Those restaurant businesses can bring a family together, but in most cases tear them apart, because it's not, it's a hard life, and 60, 70 hours a week. It was, and then it was taking its toll on my relationship with my dad too. I actually quit on him and started working for someone else, and that was a brutal time. And then all of a sudden I meet Bobby and I disappear. My dad's pissed off, and he doesn't understand why I'm going up there to hockey. You're not going to do anything in hockey. And he had no idea what I was getting myself into. It was crazy. But, he was the first one, to come up for the playoffs. And, and once he saw that, he was, all in, just like I was.
Yeah, you got to see it, right? And the thing is, now I understand Bobby Parker's role, man. You need someone to tell you you're good, right? You need someone to say you're worthy. And that's an amazing story. So now you go up there and you succeed, and it sounds like you found a coach that gave you a shot and saw that you had the fire inside you. And now after that, you go to the University of Wisconsin and play there.
Yeah. I got a scholarship after my second year at Moose Jaw. Grant Stanbrook and Badger Bob Johnson, legendary Bob Johnson. He coached me 1 year. We were runner-up in the NCAA final game. And then the next year we were NCAA champs under Jeff Sauer, who was the head coach, because Bob Johnson had moved on to NHL. So 2 great years university, met my wife there. And then I would have stayed and, tried to get a degree, because no one in our family's ever gotten a degree at that point. And it just so happened halfway through my second year, the U.S. Olympic team had committed to me, and the rest was history. I played in the '84 Olympics, and then moved on to pro with Montreal after being drafted by Montreal.
Right. Now you got drafted by Montreal before you got your scholarship, and then they still had rights on you. Is that how that goes?
Yeah, I got drafted out of Moose Jaw my second year as an 18-year-old. Yeah. So.
And how come you didn't go straight there then?
I wasn't ready. Again, I was still physically wasn't ready. I just learned how to play defense, so I didn't know the position. And I just assumed, playing in international hockey could only help me more with my skating because the big ice and the type of hockey that they played. Montreal was I knew it would be a tough team to break into also. I was looking at their defensemen, and they were actually struggled the year I was in the Olympics. So my timing couldn't have been any better when I, finished the Olympics and joined the team. They're a fourth place team fighting for the playoffs. And I knew I'd get the opportunity anyway for the last 13, 14 games of the season. And we just happened to, get in the playoffs and had a great run. And I had first 13 games regular season, I was terrible. I was ready to go down to the minors, but they kept, what the coach still believed in me and the GM. And, we got in the playoffs, upset Boston, upset Quebec, and lost to the New York Islanders in the semifinals. So we had a great run, and that's basically where I made the team.
That's wow. Now that decision you made to go to college, was that on your own, or did someone advise you?
That was on my own, and I skipped one part of my second year in Moose Jaw. I tried to go to the Western Canada League, which was Tier 1, because that's where all the NHL players were coming from. Everybody was coming from the Western League and the Ontario League, and nobody from really the Division 2, I guess you'd call it, in Moose Jaw. That league was Tier 2. I went there to keep my eligibility in college, but I did go to Lethbridge, and I shouldn't tell this story, but I went to Lethbridge and should have been ineligible because I went to training camp and played some exhibition games under a different name. And then I was getting beat up so bad. My teammate from Moose Jaw from the year before said, "You better go to college. You're not ready for this." And that's why I finished.
Holy cow!
Yeah, it was crazy. So, and I got that not beat out of me for 3 games playing in Lethbridge, and it was brawls and guys were huge. It was crazy, and it's not that I couldn't cut it. The chances of you making pro are slim anyway. You better get a college degree. So that's what made my decision. But it was my decision.
Oh, that's classic, man. I mean, to make that decision at 18 to know what's best for you, not too many people make the right one, man. And now you talked about you went to the Olympic team in '84, Sarajevo, right? Before you're the Canadians, before you become pro?
Yeah. We played 65 exhibition games all over the country, played some NHL teams, played American League teams, traveled to Europe quite a bit, and followed the 1980 team, what they did, tough shoes to fill. So a lot of expectations. Real big disappointment, what happened in the Olympics. But at the end of the day, you're honored to, you're one of 22 guys chosen to represent your country. And I never took anything for granted. And the first chance, every chance I got to play for the U.S. teams, I jumped at it. And I was lucky enough to play in 4 Olympics and win a World Cup, which was probably the biggest feat of, my international career. But it was a great year, and right up to Olympics again. The Olympics were tough. That's when Russia was winning everything. And, it was just, we just beaten Canada 2 weeks before 8-0, but that was a kiss of death. That was the team we opened up with, and they beat us, and then the rest, just kind of went downhill.
Right. We all, watching the 1980 team, and all you guys are amateurs. You were amateurs all the way, I think, until 90 or something. Then it changed where pros can play. Yeah. Now Sarajevo, because I got a few close Bosnian friends, man. To know that you were there in '84, and then to see the devastation of that village. That had to be something for you, right? Yeah,
we were concerned. Yeah, really concerned in the village. No one left the village because it looked like a war was just going to break out, quite honestly. bizarre guys with the machine guns everywhere, their army, everywhere. So we didn't mess around. Like I said, no one left the campus, and I think the only times we were allowed to leave was to go to the studios to do interviews, and that was it. But and as soon as we left, that's when it all went down, right?
Yeah, man. It's a sad war that they went through there, man. It was crazy. Those guys were survivors, though, man. Tough guys and friends that I have. But to be out there in that, and I heard it was beautiful out there, before the whole landscape and everything.
But then mountains, and it was gorgeous.
But boy, you have your life now is just taking off. I mean, you're on the rocket ship, right? So when you go to the Montreal Canadiens, you became the only American captain on that team, co-captain, right?
Yeah, and that might have been the kiss of death. I was co-captain with Guy Carbonneau, and the players voted on it. I was well liked by everybody, and the players voted on it. But the general manager, Serge Savard, even though I'd won the vote, it would have been too much for me to carry, especially having to deal with the French press. You needed someone to be able to speak French to the French media. So, and I was glad. Me and Carbonneau were best friends. He was a great teammate. I wore the C on the road. He wore it at home. And it worked out great. But back, in the 80s, the French were trying to separate, and, Quebec was trying to separate from Canada. And it was just, you had the English, not necessarily American, but, the French against the English and the English against the French, and the media played a role in that. And, a lot of, untrue things written, personal things. And it was bad. I'd never seen so many fans from other city, from Quebec or Montreal, rooting for other fans because of the French. You had Boston fans, you had, New York fans in Montreal. It was really crazy situation to be stuck in. And I made a good effort, and the people appreciated the way I played and the effort I gave, but there were still those haters. And, I even went to French school. 7 of us went to French school to try and to learn the language. Wow. But bizarre. But
how was that?
It was fun. We had a real good-looking French teacher until one of the players dated her, and then it ended. That's how French class ended. And I'm not going to mention his name. So
I got you. I hear you, man. Now, I got to say though, you win a championship in high school at Mount Carmel before you leave. You win one in college, and then you win your first Stanley Cup. What, in your first full season,
year.
Second season? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
really unexpected. We got eight new rookies my second year. Guys like Claude Lemieux, Stéphane Richer, Brian Skrulin, Mike McPhee. Tom Kerbers wasn't a rookie. He came out of Duluth. He was a great defenseman, Hobie Baker winner. And then, of course, we had Patrick Roy, the goaltender, who basically stole the show. But that's why most goalies win the Conn Smythe. They stand on their head, and Patrick played amazing. I played, I wasn't a key player. I had just come off I missed 30 games with a knee injury, but I was able to finish off the year and play, a regular position in the playoffs. But at that point, we still had Larry Robinson, Rick Green, Craig Ludwig. So I ended up being like a 5th or 6th defenseman, but still played a pretty significant role and part, winning in the Stanley Cup.
Wow. I don't know if you ever, you know the movie Bull Durham. Ron Shelton wrote and directed it, and he came out with a book not too long, like a year and a half ago, called The Church of Baseball. And he talks about how he made that movie, what went on, the hells of Hollywood and all that kind of stuff. But he talked about why, right? He played minor league baseball, and he talked about that he thought sports movies just didn't capture the inspiration, like they concentrate maybe too much on the field. And he talked about this story. Eddie Matthews was his hero. And he said the 57 World Series, they finally got to see it on TV, and Eddie Matthews was having a horrible series. And they got to the game 7, and Matthews came up in the 10th inning with the game on the line, and they're all thinking, oh, what's he going to do? And he said, the stories you need to tell are the inspirational ones that happen in the mind. Like, not on the field, that's competition, that's exterior, that's physical. But but it's what got them there, the journey. And to think like, Eddie Matthews, he was part alcoholic. He had a divorce. He had a tough marriage. And how did he, at the last moment, his legacy's on the line, and he hits a home run to win the World Series for the Milwaukee Braves. And he talked about, I wanted to tell a story from the characters, the psychology of it. And that's been so fascinating to me, too, with my father's story. And then thinking about your story, it's right in the same lines. The inspiration lies in the journey, right? In what gets you there. And I have to say, what was it that gave you the goods to conquer your dream? Not only did you thrive in it, but to maintain the consistency at the highest level in your sport for 26 years. What was it, man?
Well, again, I love shoving it up people's ass. How's that? And proving them wrong. Just to be, and there, when you talk about Bobby Parker told me that I was good enough to play. Well, the year before that, my dad was getting his friends and other people to tell me that I wasn't good enough to play, and that I should go to West Point, or I got to go to college. And I was always going to go to college, but my dad, he just didn't want me playing anymore. Like, you got to work, you got to do this. You've had enough chances, blah blah blah, And then when I finally, did get there and it was a reality, I just, for my coaches that I had my whole career, my friends, family, I wanted to make it for them, and just show them like I could do this. And then the will to, train. There's no question when I was ahead of the curve, and I mentioned it in my speech about Michael Jordan.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't do anything different in Montreal as far as training. I did everything they did. I did run more than I ran. I did the Walter Payton up the sand dunes thing. That was my biggest strength, was my legs and my speed. But when I met Michael and saw that he had a personal trainer and the effect it had on his teammates, I immediately got that trainer, and that took me to a different level. And I couldn't not train. I was addicted. I was getting up at 5:40. I moved to California to be with this trainer and not get any distractions. I couldn't train in Chicago. There was just too much going on with friends and family. So every June 15th, when the kids got out of school, I took them to California, rented a place for a few years until we decided to buy. And I was up every morning, 5:15, driving, down the PCH to Venice, and that's where he trained people. His name was T.R. Goodman. And like I said, I just got really lucky meeting him and the way he trained me, and he had hockey experience, and nobody in the early 90s was training like that. So I was able to bring it to a different level and keep it there. And again, it's lucky I didn't get injured, but when I did get injured, I'd bounce back quicker than anybody. I came back from ACL in 3 months. I broke my thumb, came back, within 2 weeks. So, and a lot of it had to do with the training. That the area was hurt. I was so strong around that area. I mean, I didn't even feel it. So I tore my ACL and didn't even know it. My legs were so strong. So that had most to do with it. And I did that from 1994, I think it was 93, right till the last year, that I retired with my trainer, the same trainer my kids trained with him. So. That was my advantage, I think, throughout my career.
It's that mindset, though, man, that mental fortitude. My dad had that, too. You guys, like, everything that you went through and your dad saying, hey, quit, and, because thinking it's a pipe dream, you're doing this, you're traveling everywhere. And kind of my dad's dad left him at 8 years old. So it was like, and his dad brought him to his first baseball game right down the block. There was a minor league park. And he was almost like playing to say, screw you, I'll show you I'll be something. You're going to leave me. And do you think it's because, like, of all of that you're like, I'm going to stay in this league as long as I can. I got here. I'm not leaving. And I think, true Hall of Famers have that complete long-term vision, right? I mean, my dad hardly got hurt, right? He got hit in the face, broke his jaw, was out for 5 games,
Yeah.
And used the flap. There's just something special to that mentality. And I think you're born with it, man. I don't know, because it seems like you had it all the way through. And so did my dad, because your speeches were very similar as far as, like, my dad was lost for words when his number was retired, right? And And
Right.
you're kind of the same word. You talked about your family. It's like, do you look back and reflect now and go, that journey was, oh my God, how did I get through that? It's almost like a war film, a personal war
Jeff,
film.
I think about that every time I start thinking about that weekend and the announcement with Pearl Jam. I just still can't believe it, quite honestly. But I'm so happy about it because that'll live forever. That jersey, like your father's in the rafters, regardless of how many rinks they build. That thing's still going to be hanging there, and my kids, the grandkids, be able to. And again, hometown, my kids are all here. That's special for me. And I the competitive thing, quite honestly, I used to run, the 50-yard dash. Let's say, first, second grade, all the way through sixth grade, and throughout that time, through high school, there was only one guy that beat me, and I guess I must have been competitive as hell because there's only one guy that ever beat me in a 50-yard dash or something. His name was Matty Queenie, and we battled for like 2 years. We were going to the same grammar school, and it was crazy how I had these weird muscles above, in my knees, like my quads, and people thought I was deformed. My legs were deformed, so I had some crazy thing going with these legs. So, and it translated onto the ice. And again, that the competitiveness was always there. It's just, again, growing the right time, training as much as I did. And then once I got in the league, I never took anything for granted. I knew it wasn't going to last forever, but I tried to make it last forever. And again, the fact I didn't have to uproot my family at the end of my career, that ends a lot of guys' careers. I was lucky that I could finish off in Detroit with a great team for 10 years and stay in one place.
Yeah, it's fascinating, man. Let's talk about like the three different cities, right? You're in Montreal. You're the young kid there, right? You had almost like three different Chris Chelioses, your evolution. You go to the Hawks, you get traded to your hometown, you become the star there, right? And then you become the veteran. Do you feel like you evolved in all three places as a man?
Absolutely. Like you said, not knowing the position, raw when I got to Montreal, could skate like the wind and was offensive, but, not smart, in a sense when you're, you got a tool goal lead. Instead of protecting that lead, I would take risks. I think, as a defenseman, you could hurt your team, by trying to do too much. And I felt like that was the case a few times, but then I look at guys like Ray Bourque and other offensive defensemen, like if they didn't take those chances and risks, they had no chance to win. So, I was on the cusp of that. And then when I got to Chicago, I think that's where I, was still feeling that I had to try things. I had to take risks and do things. And I don't have any regrets because I felt like had I not done it, we wouldn't have won anyway, just by playing defense. And our team just wasn't the best team. Pittsburgh, but Lemieux and the Hall of Famers, when we lost to the finals, I had to do, go above and beyond. And for the most part, I felt like I did that. I didn't hurt the team. But when I got to Detroit, they were already a machine, and they just won 2 cups, and I fit in perfectly. They didn't need me to create offense, only on the power play. So that was, then I was mature. I learned the position by then. I was, I had a great partner in Steve Duchesne and Yuri Fisher. So there was no need for me to take chances and take risks because I had such a good team in front of me, and I had the goaltending also. So just, again, smarter. With experience, I got smarter, but it was for sure through different, waves of how I played.
Unbelievable, man. And I got to say this, you were the captain, like on 3 of the Olympic teams. You were the captain in co-captain in Montreal, captain in Chicago, captain in Detroit too, correct?
No, Steve Yzerman was the captain for all those years. And then when he retired, Nick Lidstrom was the captain. I was an assistant in Detroit.
But you were captain on so many different areas. When did you know that you were a leader of men? I mean, and some of the toughest men on the planet. When did you know that?
You know what? I still think I wasn't ready in Montreal. It affected the way I played. I was too up and down, like passionate, took penalties. You can't do that as a leader. And I think I just wasn't ready. And even though the teams, the players picked me because I was, a great teammate, I think there was better choices. It shouldn't always be the best player or the best players being the captain. It's got to be leaders. And at that point, I led by example on the ice with my work ethic and, what I did there. By the time I got to Chicago, I was ready for it. Dirk Graham had captained before. He was a really good captain, soft-spoken, led by example on the ice. And when he did speak, it sunk in. And, at that point, I was ready for it. And it was a little bit undisciplined through the Keenan Sutter era. But again, that just comes with age. And I thought, as far as Chicago and being the captain there, I thought I matured and did a pretty good job. And it just, things fell apart. Things happened behind closed doors with management. And, I never wanted to leave Chicago, but the signs were, everything was telling me, you have to go. I didn't want to be embarrassed in front of my teammates, which was starting to happen. I had, Dirk Graham was the coach at the time, and it was tough because I had played with him and couldn't understand, why he was treating them the way he did. And I know it, it wasn't because of my playing. It just, they had their minds made up, meaning management, that it was time for me to go. They just wanted me to be the one to ask for the trade as opposed to them trading me. And it all worked out good. I left on great terms with, Bill Wirtz and Rocky Wirtz. And obviously, they bring me back the first minute they could to continue to work with the team as an ambassador now. So, like I said, it hurt at the beginning, and going to Detroit, which was one of the teams that everybody hated most, including myself. But, for me, it was an original six team. They had great ownership, and it was as close to Chicago as I was going to get. So it worked out tremendously.
Similar to my dad, he went through that stuff in 73. Obviously, they didn't win in 71. Should have won in 72. Also, maybe that same team, great team. But in 73, they wanted to trade him to California, a 2-year deal. He would have got one of the highest paid ball players, and he was the first who used the 5-10-year rule where he said, I don't want to, if you're on a team for more than 5 years in the league for more than 10, you could veto the trade. And he did that and said, send me to the South Side, right? And then they said, the Cubs said, no, you know what, Ron, we're not going to trade you. And then, emotions got the best of me. No, I want to go to the South Side. But it is that. I think there's a thing where you just have to move on. And, obviously your choice was the correct choice. You went and won 2 more Stanley Cups. He went to your Southside White Sox. You remember that team he went to?
Oh, yeah.
With Bucky Dent and Goose Gossage. They had some good players on that team. Goose Gossage, Terry Forster, Dick Allen. Yeah. So I have to say this, man. When you said in your speech, you brought your family back to Chicago. I mean, here's this kid that goes and flies off on his own to the great beyond. And then you finally, when you come to Chicago, you get to bring your whole family back home. What did that feel like?
It was amazing. Overnight, it hurt bad at 15, moving to San Diego, really bad. And, basically never get to see your friends again or family and my uncles and, all my cousins that was it. It's not like back then you're traveling back and forth and, like you do now. So, the minute I found out I got traded from, Serge made that call to me. Second call was to my mom and dad and said, pack up. We're all moving back. And they're like, what? I go, I just got traded to Chicago. So I think in 2-3 weeks they were packed up. We were only renting out in San Diego at that time. And drove right back with a truck, bought him a house in Westmont, real close to where I was living in Oak Brook. And I guess I still say that people ask me what my favorite team was. I don't know about my favorite team, but with no question, the 90s were the most special, having kids and, having my family at every game, my cousins, my old coaches, my old teammates growing up. So for me, the 90s was the most special, quite honestly. And, it just wasn't, I didn't want to choose a team. I loved playing in all 3 cities, but it was home and I was with my whole family. I was having kid after kid after kid. I had 4 kids. So it was pretty spectacular, when I brought them back and I can look up in the stands and see, my mom and dad and my kids and my wife. It was great.
That's amazing, man. I mean, you really, my dad the same way. When I was a kid, just being around everyone that was rotating in our house, the energy was just so uplifting, right? And to bring your family to a higher existence, really, and from your dad, kind of, and then you made your dad's life better and your mom's life better, and what a thing a son can do, man. That's
I understand.
So gratifying.
That's for sure. Yeah, I mean, even after I retired, I went and played a year in the American League with the Chicago Wolves, and I didn't miss a game there. My sons were playing junior hockey just down the road, so they were at the rink 5 days a week, and just watching my dad, like I said, he was a passionate, nutty bastard. So he was. I'd see him up in the bleachers. They were losing. He was yelling at everybody and cussing everybody out. We were winning. He was like, he's a great winner and a terrible loser. So. And my mom would just tell me, "Shut up! You got to shut up, Gus. You got to shut up." But
you got to shut up, Gus.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's good. I want to, talk about your kids here. Did they have aspirations of playing? How did you feel about that? A lot of pressure.
Yeah, the first two were boys, right? So we had at that point when I was in Chicago, there had to be, at least 8 to 10 kids the same age, boys the same age. So that Belfer's kid played. Creighton's kid played, Suter's kid played with my son. So we had 5 kids on St. Jude nights, 5 kids playing out west out in the West Rink one year too with the Sabres. So it's not like I forced them to play. The minute they started watching it, it was shinny hockey, and then every game they'd go to, they'd be playing with all the other kids in the wives' room with their shinny sticks in the nets and set everything up. And the minute they were old enough to get on the ice, they took off like rockets. And then my poor daughters, started out as goalies because they needed someone to shoot at, but they both ended up playing hockey right till, their high school. They went and played high school hockey in Detroit, and Kaylee was a great player, probably one of the best in the state. They both went on to play lacrosse at Northwestern. But again, there's a lot of pressure on my sons. They had a bullseye on their back. One of them, he was built for it. The other one was a skill player, and I don't think he, liked it very much. In fact, I know he hated it. People would go after him players would go after him just assuming they were like me. And like I said, Jake was a little more like me than, my son Dean was more like his mother. It sucked to see it, but they handled it, as good as they possibly could right through their college careers at Michigan State.
Great, man. And now was one coaching or one's in journalist?
No, Jake is still playing in Russia. He played in the minor leagues, played about 8 games for the Detroit Red Wings. So he did make it. And
right on.
Like I was lucky, he wasn't very lucky with opportunity. And, he worked, his skating, and probably made a mistake. He switched to defense in college, and he never really learned the position and wasn't strong enough backward skater. He would have been a better off forward for this league. And then my other son, Dean, played in the East Coast League for a little bit. He's now retired and training. My daughter's the one that's a journalist for working for the Blackhawks. She's doing the broadcasting. My other daughter is trying to find her way still. She's can't figure out what she wants to do, but again, they all graduated. Couldn't be more proud of them.
God, yeah, it sounds like it. Just feel that when you gave your speech, man, about your family. It's just so good to see that. It really is. Last thing I want to ask you, Chris, is your friendship with Eddie Vedder, man. You guys are so close. Tell me how that started, and you guys just connect. I think you connect from your roots, right? Similar.
Yeah, I mean, for whatever reason, and I still swear, I don't really remember, but I just have this feeling once I saw Eddie for the first time and met him in '95 through Dennis Rodman. He was friends with Dennis, and we just happened to be at the same place. And when I looked at him, I didn't know who he was. There was just something that, I felt like I'd known him. And so I went up to him and talked to him, and, it ends up, he was from Chicago, moved to San Diego around the same time. We for sure surfed the same spots, and I guarantee that we'd said hi to each other, on the beaches when we were surfing, because there's always a lot of downtime when you're a surfer, just sitting out and hanging. And so we started talking, and it was right just before cell phones, or maybe just right at the, when they were starting, and we exchanged numbers. We kept in touch, and then Eddie met his wife Jill. I invited him out to California a couple times, and then they started having kids. And obviously being a big Pearl Jam fan, it was funny when I asked him what he did for a living. He said, "Well, I'm in a band." I said, "Really? What band are you in?" He goes, "Well, I'm in Pearl Jam." I go, "What's your name?" He goes, "Eddie Vedder." He goes, "Holy Christ." I said, I love your band. I said, I've seen your band a couple of times. And that 91 was their big break. And basically 91's the year I got traded to Chicago. And they played, they were the last ones to play the old Chicago Stadium. They closed it down, which is kind of cool. But yeah, we couldn't be more opposite in ways. But there's a lot of similarities. Like we found out, like I got the same pictures hanging in my house as he does without even knowing. And I have T-shirts that, from high school and stuff that he has. So it's pretty bizarre, but yeah, it's been a great relationship with him and Jill and his family, his brothers, over the course, I've met him 95, almost, 20 years. And, he's just a special guy. He never says no to anybody. He changes lives, and he cares so much. And, everybody thinks this rock and roll life is all glamour, but he works harder than anybody I've ever seen, and so passionate about everything he does. And, his Chicago Cubs, when I first started going to Cubs games with him, I go, this guy's a goofball. He'd bring his baseball glove and a scorecard to the game every game. I'm like, this guy takes it pretty serious. But that's Eddie. And, I'm so happy coming back to Wrigley this year again to play Wrigley. And, I cherish our time together because we don't get to see each other as much as we'd like, but, we cram, which is not a good thing when we see each other, and maybe stay out a little too late, but we're getting better as the years go on.
Yeah, that's funny, man. You guys are kindred spirits, man. Hard work, like you said, so many things that you have in common at the root level, man. And yeah, I got to say the fantasy baseball camp last time we were together was 2020, just before COVID. We had a hell of a team, me, you, Eddie, Ronnie Jr., and then all of a sudden you guys got to take off just as we're about to get in the, championship game, semifinal. And then Ronnie gets sick, and I'm held with the bag.
Yeah,
we took it on
crazy.
Took it on the chin.
I miss those camps. That was, what a great 50th birthday present. Eddie bought that for me. I would have never even thought of going to a fantasy camp for the Cubs or the Side. It never occurred to me. I didn't even know they had them. So, when he surprised me with that one, and 12 of my really good friends showed up, surprised me. It was pretty special. And like you mentioned, that Eddie had to do a show in Florida. That's what caused us to miss that game, the championship game. And we were wounded, our team also. And like you said, everybody was getting COVID or getting sick, and Eddie got sick actually. When we landed from that flight, Eddie got sick. So he battled through his show. He actually asked me to come on stage and be backup singer with him just to help him out. I'm like, okay. Anytime he asks me to go, I'm jump up there. I can't sing worth a lick, but I got away with it.
That's classic, man. And then, you guys left me. Joey Banks' team just killed us. So, your 50th birthday party was such a great time too at that old hotel, the Dobson Inn. Oh my God! But great times, man. Thank you so much.
I don't know if you remember, Jeff. If you remember though, my second day there, I broke my kneecap. I don't know if you remember that. And I was on a camp. I ended up finishing the camp because the fracture was a good fracture, not a bad one. But I saw all my friends when you guys surprised me with all my friends that had flown in. I got so excited I started drinking during the game in between innings when I was catching, and I went to hit a ball and I tried stepping out of the box and just toe picked, and boom. By the time I got to first base, Jose Cardinal's looking at my leg and going, "That's not good." So anyway.
You get a baseball, you get injured. Is that unbelievable?
I know.
It doesn't even make any sense. But you came back in 2020, got behind the plate again. You were good back there, man.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Eddie's just a great guy. Great knowing both you guys, man.
Thank you, Jeff.
I got to tell you. And you're just a hell of a guy, man. And can't wait to see you again. I'm sure I will. You come to L.A. a lot. I'm out here. Let me know. I'd love to have a beer with you. Thank you so much for being on, Chris. It really means a ton.
You got it, Jeff. My pleasure.
All right. Yep. Have a great day, man. All right. Talk to you soon. All right. Take care, pal.
Bye-bye.
This Santo moment is brought to you by Onesti Entertainment. When Ron Santo signed with the Cubs, he signed as a catcher. When he was sent to rookie ball, he would put on his catcher's gear every game ready to play. But Elvin Tapp wouldn't put him in. But that didn't hold back Ron from tapping on Tapp's shoulder every game to let him know he's ready to play. Then one day, Ron decided to shed his catcher's gear and only bring his third baseman's glove to the field. Noticing Tap getting frustrated with his third baseman's errors, Ron tapped on Tap's shoulder again and challenged him to put him in at third base. Tap capitulated and threw him in at third. He made 2 outstanding plays, and on his first minor league at-bat, he hit a home run. When Ron was called up to the big leagues at the age of 20, Elvin Tap was the backup catcher for the Cubs. His locker was right next to Ron's, and he said, "I knew you'd make it here." That Santoid was brought to you by Honesty Entertainment.
Crackerjack.
This call is being recorded.
Pat, PW, Walsh.
How are you, buddy?
How you doing, man? You're my crackerjack this week.
Oh my God, are you serious?
Yes, you are.
Am I in the radio?
There's no radio, man. We're taping it. You're but that just I called you, I missed you, and then you called me back, and it's been too long, brother. Been too long. How you been?
I'm good. All good, buddy.
Yeah.
What's with you?
What's good, man? Good. Now, are you watching the Cubs?
You know what? I cut the cord on my Comcast. Yeah, I got rid of my cable, so I got this. We got YouTube TV, and I'm trying to find the Cub game on here. I find out we don't get it. So
what do you mean you don't get it? You don't? Don't you have like a direct, like you're in Chicago? How?
No,
you can't not get the Cub game in Chicago.
They have their own network now. They have their own marquee network. They have their own TV channel now.
I got that, but you can't what do you have to get it?
I gotta subscribe to it. It's very high tech. I'm a dinosaur when it comes to that stuff. I can ask my daughter to figure it out. I don't know.
Oh, I got you, man. Yeah, we have Apple TV, so we actually have get the MLB package, right? You got to get that.
Oh yeah. Well,
you know what I mean? But
are they worth watching right now? I haven't. I've been kind of. I just beat the Sox. That was good. I saw those games because I could watch it on the Sox channel.
It's not, man. It's very difficult right now. I have to tell you. I talked about that in the beginning of the show. Man, what's going on with baseball? Don't you notice the consistency of the players have just where's the real consistency year in and year out? I mean, the guys are hitting, I think the average 220 as a team or something. I don't know.
Yeah, it's they don't care about average anymore. It's all OPS and slug and slash and all that stuff. I barely even know what that means anymore. But
I don't even think they're slashing and slugging either right now, man. What's going on is
they don't have enough. The only guy that's hitting homers is Morel, right?
Yeah, but he's getting some tough outs. He's just having some bad luck. I love that guy. But I just feel like Swanson he's hitting 200. I mean, that's
I know.
That's brutal, man. I don't.
Well, they had him in the 7 hole, I think, right? Last game, I think.
Yeah,
wasn't he 3 or 4 last year?
Yeah, there was. It just seems like they've been in this rut for a month, right? And it's really hard to watch. It's hard to see them take out their stars, and when they got first and third tie game and all that kind of stuff, and I'm like, why are you pulling a guy to, this guy wants to get him out of Assad pitching the other day, and then the lefty came in and they lost that game, and it just seems like, man, I don't know, the actual pitcher that lasts 6 innings is a feat today,
Oh, right.
And,
yeah.
I mean, I just remember when we played, you're looking at. I know Kyle's at the end of the career, but the thing is, I just feel like it's the hitters, the lack of consistency in there's only a few guys that really keep the same numbers up every year. It's less and less. And why do you think that is?
I don't know if it's they keep. There was this thing about the spin rate on the pitchers and all that stuff. Was that a year ago? I don't know if that was true or not, but it just seems like for 1 year the pitchers have the advantage, and next year the hitters do. I don't know. It seems like it's just like you said, it's not consistent.
Yeah, it's not. It's not. And I was talking. I had Jody Davis on a couple weeks ago, man, and I told him.
Really cool.
Yeah, because it's the 40th anniversary of the Cubs 1984 team that we love
Oh
so
my
much,
God.
right?
You know what? That's, 1984, I shouldn't say this on your show, but that's like my password for everything. My name will work out. Yeah.
Hey, say it with a kid, man. That was our team. Obviously I'm a kid when my dad's playing on the team in '69, so I don't, I'm born into that stuff. But that was our team that we followed. And I was telling Jody, we threw out the furniture in our.
Oh my God. Yeah, there was a lot of damage to the place. Yeah, that was the best. I don't know, maybe one of the best years of my life, though, living with you, buddy. That was a
fun year, man.
That was awesome.
Rooming with you and Ward and at our wiffle ball tournament.
Yeah,
and
I still say I won that. I don't know. You claimed injury.
I'll give it to you. As long as we don't give it to Ward, I'll give it to you. You know what I mean?
All right.
So,
I'll take it.
But the thing is, because I was playing baseball that year. And so there's just a lot going on that year. And I was talking to Bobby D too. And Bobby D brought up wiffle ball. Can you believe that? Bobby Denier. I had him on the show.
Really? Were you allowed to play? Did they let you? Was that bad for you to play wiffle ball?
No, but he talked about being a kid playing wiffle ball. He talked about the home run he hit in the first game. And how that was crazy, and how he could just feel the noise going around second, and it was like a wiffle ball moment. You have those moments when you're a kid. I'm thinking,
oh my God,
yeah,
that was so exciting. That was I'm getting bumps thinking of that.
Right.
Those first two games were just I was like, we're going. And your dad had that thing. Wasn't that your dad had that thing with Miller Lite that year too? Right.
He did.
Like if they what was it? If they won. If they got to
the World Series, his commercial was going to be the one, and if the Padres got there, it was going to be Randy Jones, and he thought he was in 2-0.
Right, we're like you should bet on the Padres right now, and we'll get paid either way, right? We're like, you remember that?
Yeah, I don't get paid either way, but definitely take that risk.
He would get. I don't know.
Oh yeah, him. Yeah, right. It's just, that was that. That was tough, man. And it's their anniversary, so I hope you go down to the ballpark. I think on June 22nd, all the '84 Cubs are going down there. They're playing the Mets. So,
cool.
Be a good time to take your boy down there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I got Chelly on this episode, and I had to call you thinking about hockey, right? And so, now when did you start playing hockey? Because you played baseball, you played football, you played 3 sports.
Yeah, they don't do that anymore. It's kind of weird, but I think I was 9. I think I started at 9, which today, I cut my kid in it, and these kids are starting at like 4 now.
Wow.
But no, when I was, we had that thing at Roosevelt Park. There was that outdoor rink, and then I think the first year they built that indoor rink, so I played there.
The Glenview Ice Center.
I think when I was and then I think I was 9, and then the next year, just kind of on a lark, I tried out for this travel team, and I barely made it, but that just kind of it turned out to be a good sport for me. I don't know why. It just
it did, man.
And I played the other sports too. Yeah. I think it helped me play all of them.
Absolutely. I was just thinking about you though. I'm like, what got you into hockey? Like, you didn't have really a rink. Like, was your dad pushing you there, or did you just take to that?
No. Do you remember JT, John Thompson? We were playing Pee Wee football together, and he was one of those travel hockey kids.
Okay.
And we had to be friends, and he's like, "You should try for this team. It's really fun." And so, I was playing house league there before I didn't know the rules. I didn't know where I was going or anything, and I somehow made this travel team, and asking my dad, like, "Do you want to do this?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I think it'll be fun." And that was 1974 or something like that. And I'm still playing now. I still skate.
Are you really?
One thing, that's one thing. It's about hockey. It's weird. It's like it's harder for me to play golf now than it is to play hockey.
Why is that?
It's easier. I think it's just because your feet are not attached to the ground. You're gliding, and it's lower impact. I mean, you do get injuries from like collisions and stuff, but it's less impact than like, playing basketball or something like that. But
right. Well, dude, which is
so,
crazy because you get checked or whatever at 60 playing hockey. I had to give up soft. I was playing 12-inch out here, and I couldn't walk the dogs the next day after every game.
I tried playing when I got out here. At the first time I ever blew a hamstring was playing like 50-year-old softball.
Yeah.
It's that.
Yeah. Now, because did you ever skate at our rink on the lake that we had?
No, I don't know if I ever went out there, but I
don't think you ever
the
did.
Stories. I mean, I think I was scared about what happened to Kanan. So
that was off the rink. That was chasing him back home, but he went in there with the springs and fell in. Thank God we saved him. We did the ladder. But the thing is though, with our ice rink that we had, I learned how to play hockey. Right, like Ronnie was good at it, but I just I was an okay skater. But I remember going to Roosevelt, like you talked about, and my dad put us in they had little leagues out there, right? These little leagues, teams that you get on. And I remember getting on
there.
Yeah, and I think I remember being on a team, and then all of a sudden, because I wasn't that great of a skater, this one guy started just pounding me, and I hated it. I'm like, this isn't fun. I can't skate, and then you're getting hit. It's like football and skating.
Back then you could check at that age.
Yeah.
Now they don't let you. They don't even do it till they're, I think, 14. Or I think they don't even start checking.
Right.
Yeah. So it's a little. Yeah. So a lot of the kids.
To this day, I think it was Johnny Savino that was doing that to me. One of the. I just. I was so close with Billy, so I don't know if it was Johnny, but someone said, "Yeah, take out. There's Ron Santos. Go hit." I couldn't even skate. I'm like, let's get on the baseball field, guy. But I think that did it to. I think that turned me around where I'm like, I don't think this sport's for me. I had fun outside at our rink and everything, but yeah, that was man, that sport. How you could have played college.
Chelios made it a little further than I did. Chelios made it a little further. But it's funny, there was one kid, I heard him talking when he did his ceremony, and I heard him talk about a guy named Mike Straczynski. And I actually played with him at Miami. He was on that same team. Yeah, he played with him at Wisconsin one year. But it was so I just played, growing up and then through high school. But what was weird for me was that I went from high school right to Miami. Most of the kids will go play juniors for a couple of years.
Okay.
Out in Canada or somewhere, and then come in. That's why all the head of the captain of the team was, I think, 26 when I got to Miami, and they're all older kids. So I was really green when I got there. But
okay.
But yeah.
Did you wish you played all the way through for 4 years? Because I always remembered you as like the hockey star in our group. You know what I mean? Like Pat Walsh can play hockey.
It was tough though, because I was on the JV or club team, they called it.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't make the varsity roster. I was one of 11 recruits, and I think like 4, maybe 5 or 6 other guys that got recruited made the varsity roster. So our JV team was loaded. We had a bunch of D1 recruits on it, and we were killing everybody. But and then there'd be an injury or two, on the varsity level, and I was like, well, here's my chance, because that was first line center. I'm like, here, I'm going to go, and it just never happened. So, I had some troubles in some grades my freshman year, and kind of got to the point where I was like, I can't. It was hard to do both. It's a huge commitment. I was there, a couple weeks before school started till after St. Patrick's Day, we were still playing hockey, and it's like, every day except for Sunday, you're out there. It was a lot. So it was a huge time commitment, and I wasn't much of a student, so.
Right, but the thing is, though, you look at that because I came to Miami later, and then we roomed when I transferred there, and I played ball. You saw the commitment I had with baseball. I mean, it was a lot.
God,
but you would think, though, did you know you were I never even thought back about that. I'm like, because you were done playing hockey when I got there, or you were winding down, and then you were playing on some leagues, fun leagues.
Right.
But did you ever think to yourself, man, go the distance on that, or you were good to give that?
Yeah, I did, but I also knew that when I was going, most of the kids that were out there that was like in my recruiting class, they just I played 20 or 30 games in high school, and I went right out there. Most of these kids were playing probably, I don't know, 70, 80 games, something like that up in Canada. They just had way more experience than me. I was pretty green. But okay. I felt like I did feel like if I got a shot, if they let me, if I got a taste of it, then I probably would have stuck it out. But I never got that taste, as a freshman. So come back sophomore year, and they're kind of like, yeah, we got a new group of kids coming in. You're just basically a walk on. If you want to come back, I'm like, no thanks. That was kind of how it went.
Yeah. School took over. I mean, just being in college and having that freedom. Definitely that does kind of throw him. But you look at just looking up Chelios's career and everything and going, wow, man, I mean, he was going to give it up and grew like 2 inches, this is crazy. And then you were an offensive guy, right? You were a center, weren't you?
Yeah. Yep.
Who is your favorite Hawks player?
I don't know why the first name that came to my head was Cliff Coral. I think it's because I had a jersey of his when I was a little kid. But
really?
From the old days. Yeah, I liked watching him. Then of course, Hull and then Savard and all that. But and then more recently, Kane and Taves and all this, and it's fun to watch Bedard now.
Ronnie was more of a Hawks fan. Obviously, I would tune in, here and there, but I was more baseball and football. But I remember my dad taking me and Ronnie to a Hawks game when he was playing baseball. And we sat right up in the glass, and it was so cool as all the Hawks came by and just hit their sticks on the glass. At my dad, Bobby Hall, Dennis Hall, all of them, all those guys. It's Keith Magnuson.
Who was your guy? Who did you?
Well, I just remember Jim Pappin came over to the house. He was he was friends with my, and then Keith Magnuson was a good friend of my dad's, and Keith actually would come to our ice rink at times. Because he lived on the other side of Valley Low,
Yeah, he was good about. He was very accessible kind of guy, right? He would do a lot of charity stuff.
Yeah, man.
I'd see him at a lot of stuff like that.
And I remember when he would walk over, just literally a cowboy, that fell off a horse 1,000 times,
Right.
He just, oh my.
He did get banged up. Yeah, he was. Yeah. But he would get
all those guys, just that was like a fierce sport to me, man.
Remember Albany's?
Oh yeah,
in Albany's. He was like my He was like my protector out there.
Oh, that makes sense.
Anybody was chipping away at me too much, he would take care of it.
Yeah, it's pretty funny because you were just as big as Albany's.
Well, maybe it's tall, but that guy was.
Yeah, I hear you. You're younger, so I get it. I get it. Man, how's everything? Is your son playing hockey?
Yeah, he's playing high school hockey now out in Naperville.
Great.
So, yeah, he's doing great. And my daughter's a freshman. He's just turned. He just got his driver's license. So he just turned 16. And my daughter's a freshman. Just finished her freshman year at Tennessee. She loved that.
Wow.
That was
great.
That was good. Yeah, all's good. We're just kind of living the dream out here in Naperville.
Yeah, right on, man. God, well, it's been so long, buddy, and I just wanted to give you a call. And our time at that school that year that we lived together.
Oh my God!
I just, that whole '84 stuff was classic, and
So I lived my sophomore year at the fraternity house, and then when you and Ward were like, "Hey, do you guys want to get a place?" I was like, "Oh my God, this will be awesome!" And we got that apartment, and I remember we sent you out to get the blinds. Remember the curtains or whatever for the windows, and you're like, and they went halfway down the window, and we're like, "What'd you get? What are these for?" He's like, "Well, look at the picture; it covers the whole window."
Oh, I remember when you guys locked me out one night, man. I don't know what the hell you guys were playing bump and jump. And I don't know if I came home from baseball practice and I was just tired and you guys wouldn't even just concentrated on the video game.
It was a big game. I'm sure it was a pretty intense game. You know, we had going, couldn't, break ourselves away at the moment, and you just broke the door down, so it's fine.
I broke the door down.
You did.
Oh God, that was something else, man. Can you believe that's 40 years ago, buddy?
No. Have you been back? Have you done any reunions or anything like that?
No, never went back. No, never went back. Yeah, I was almost kind of like, pissed that I didn't play my last year of baseball. Yeah. Kind of a big regret of mine. That was. I'm done with it now, but it's one of those things that lasted a long time in my dreams. What the hell? I was still on the bench and the coach doing something stupid.
No, I remember going to Steve Pitt and I couldn't believe you weren't playing pro, because I'd watch you in BP and just the sound of the ball from you when you were hit, it was different. You just had made a different sound, and I was like, I can't, you could barely throw even then, right? But you could hit.
Oh, I could hit though. Yeah, I could. My arm was. I should have got surgery on the arm, but
you were DHing, right? Mostly.
I was DHing. I went from walking on there and then being hitting 5, and then I even hit 4 a couple of games in that year. But he had just a weird thing with me. He was a strange coach. It was like I never had a problem with a coach until I got there, so I understood kind of like what Ronnie went through. He kind of went at me in a certain way, and I wasn't ready for that. Like what the hell's going on here? But you mentioned that, like, when I do think about like going back, I mean, I think physically I was there, but I don't think mentally I was ready for that. You know what I mean? I think you need to be, have a good head on your shoulders to go through that kind of stuff on your own at 18, 19 years old, right? Right.
Like you're trying to figure out, what's this coach doing to me? Is this a mistake? And all that. I just think, compared to like a lot of these other kids that were coming in that were 20 years old, I just was really green compared to them. So
yeah, I think you're right. That's a big deal. Yeah, that's a big deal. You're right. It's a good point. Is understanding that there's these coaches at this level. I mean, that's their gig, right? That's their job. So yeah, they're gonna. And the weird thing is that specific coach I had, he treated like he was just. Like, I remember like we had double headers because it was so cold in the spring. So we played double headers all the time, right? Like 7-inning games. And I remember he would be like, no, you can't eat between the games. You got to, eat the other players. I'm thinking, are you out of your mind? We're dying of hunger right now. Right. This is not going to work. We're all going to die come the end of this year. We're all going to be tired. And we did. We had a really good team. But you could just see even the seniors that had different coaches before him. You could tell they were even like, yeah. But a guy, they last there, and you just wonder how coaches like that can get in there. And I just felt the negativity, right? But I should have been like, screw this guy. I'm not going to let this guy take me down. Right. So that's what I regretted. You know what I mean? Because you're right. You're not ready for that.
I didn't handle I couldn't believe that I didn't make the roster as right after tryouts, and I didn't handle it well.
Right.
I didn't, eventually, I wasn't even going to go to the club. They were like, okay, you got to go to the club tryouts. I'm like, you kidding me? I just barely got cut here, and now you're telling me I got to go to these tryouts, and I didn't go. And they said, if you don't show up to this last one, you're not even on that team. I'm like, all right, I'll show up. And
wow.
Start me out.
Wow.
It was.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think mentally, that's the part I didn't anticipate that being such a big part of it.
Yeah, it is, and I think that's the key is like, if you can get over that mental hump, I think guys like my dad and you go even to Chelios, those guys were just determined, right? To just plow through. There's a different want, right? And I always say this, like my dad came from, a tough growing up. His dad left him. And I think having more, we had more than what he had, right? That does matter, that it's like how bad do you want it? But you're seeing kids today that actually have good lives and are making it. I think that has a lot to do with maybe the parents being a little bit more aware, or they're just playing hockey all the time or baseball all the time. They're in one sport. What's your take on that?
They might also be getting seeing, counselors and stuff like that. A lot of these guys are doing like that, the mental training.
I almost get to a point like, I don't know what your take is. Your son's playing now. Does he have aspirations of playing college hockey?
I'm still waiting for him to sprout. My daughter's 5'10", and I'm like 6'2"-ish, and he's still like 5'7". So we're waiting for him.
Oh, so he's gonna have that late spurt.
Yeah,
that's gonna be great.
He'd be like Hendy. He could go like in college or something.
Yeah, it's too bad Hendy didn't do that in high school because he would have taken advantage.
Well, I would have never played football. He would have took my spot. I think he would have took
a lot of people's spot. Yeah, but it's unfortunate, like to actually do it, and that's so cool. Like Shelly, like grew after and then was ready to go. You know what I mean? It's like talk about a divine intervention kind of thing. I got to say about you, man. You had the most consistency you were a good guy, man, all the time. And I'm not saying, you didn't have our fun and all that, but you kept a level head more than most. Where'd that come from?
I just think, I don't get too worked up, really. I think I got a long leash. I got I kind of have a long fuse, right? I don't really let, even when we play softball or whatever, I didn't really, get all worked up about, what was going on in the game. But if something, if something snapped, like if I am playing hockey and somebody takes a run at you and, then it kind of turns, then it does. But for the most part, I was pretty easygoing sports and in life in general.
I knew the snap in the eye.
Yeah,
don't push that too far. I'll get you one of those bear hugs you can't get out.
Yeah, so a little bit of that. I still play with the old men, and once in a while it gets a little. Yeah, get a little ticky tacky, and they're like, "Oh, you must have poked the bear." I could hear guys saying that.
Great. You're right. Yeah, it's awesome. But that's great to know that you had that extra level, and you didn't rev so high all the time. You quick to come down on that too. I remember. But just as a buddy, man, you were always, even today, man, I'd call you up and which like we're back like 40 years didn't go by.
I know. I don't think when you were talking to these other guys on your show, and I was like, oh God, I could never do this show. I'd be so nervous, and just because I don't like the being on the radio or whatever, and then now I just feel like I'm talking to you. So it's
exactly, man.
Conversation we would have any other day. So
right, man. And I was just like, I gotta call PW, man. I gotta call P. I'm talking hockey. I just think about you when hockey comes around. And, I know you had a gift in it, man, but sometimes we just, maybe we came from too soft of a spot too. You know what I mean?
Maybe. I mean,
maybe.
I've heard that my whole life. Like, coaches have always wanted more from me. You could do better. And I'm like, I don't know. I think I'm trying pretty hard. I thought I was, doing my thing.
Right.
It's just, I mean, my wife does the same thing. So.
Tell her I said hello, man. Yeah, it's been too long. I can't wait to see you again. But I think also, Bud, that me and Dan fully talked about this. The guidance. Not too many people. You weren't guided by like a mentor. To go to that next level so much. Even though and
I didn't have. I was the oldest boy. Yeah, right. I was the oldest boy. I didn't really have. I didn't know. I was kind of cutting a path for my younger brother a little bit, but I didn't know. I didn't know how to go about things, and we didn't. Right. It was like it's football season. Play football. It's here's a camp. Try this. So it wasn't. Yeah, there wasn't a lot of guidance there, but my dad wasn't. Really, he was just supportive. He wasn't. Crazy about it. He was just kind of like but at the end of the day, it my grades weren't great, but it got me an opportunity to go to Miami. And I'm very thankful for that. Like that's kind of how I look at it now. Like that got me into that school, and it was like I didn't know where I was going to go until they called, and then I got the letter of intent. I'm like, I signed this thing. You got to take me. My dad's like, sign that thing. I'm like, okay. So it was an easy decision. So
that's awesome, man. Yeah, and I think about it too. Like I look back now, being at 60 now. Are you 60 yet?
Yes. Painfully.
You just turned it. Yeah.
Just turned it.
I like 60, man. I got to tell you, I'm liking 60. I don't know why. I'm liking it. I'm healthy. I feel like I've come through a lot of a storm, and
And I like to look back on certain things and reflect. And that's a lot of what this podcast is about, just kind of tapping into the people that were around when my dad played, and what that meant, and just the friendships and everything going through the journey. Right.
I remember, like, I knew your dad before I knew you, because I was.
That's weird. I never asked you that.
I wasn't in your grade.
Right, you were a
grade below.
Grade below.
So we're at Lions School, and I'm a huge Cub fan. I was racing home after school to see the last few innings of every game, and one day I'm at school. I don't know what grade I was in, but they're like, yeah, Jeff Sano goes here. That's Ron Sano's son. I'm like, what? And then finally, I think when I first met, I was all nervous, and then eventually we got on the same team together one time, and then it sort of changed. But you were like this celebrity to me. I was like just nervous being around you. I just was like, wow, I got Cub. I mean, I was such a huge Cub fan back then. Oh my God. I knew all the numbers, all the batting averages, all that stuff. I could do all their stances in wiffle ball. I could, everybody's, I could have a Larry Bittner batting stance.
Oh, Larry Bittner,
Mary Foot, or like
Larry Bittner. We all did Larry Bittner with the helmet flying off, right? Damn, the helmet always came off. Yeah, his son's cool too, man. I'm gonna get him on a show. Bittner's son. Bitt was a great. I had Bitt as a coach in the fantasy at Randy Helmsley's fantasy camp. What a great guy, because obviously he played just after my dad. But you're right. That's so weird you say that, because I never thought that way, right? A kid, because I'm just born into it. I'm not thinking like that. I'm just, so I don't even know that. I wish I knew a little more about that. It might have helped me out, right? So.
Well, I was kind of shy, right? So it was kind of intimidating for me a little bit you got to understand. I mean, I was such a huge Cubs fan. Like, my mom was like worried about me. I was like into it. I was like racing home from school just to see like the last few innings of the game, and just begging my parents to take me to a Cub game. And I remember we went to one of the openers. It was really cold out that day, and we had an extra seat. And I'm like, oh, how's my dad? So my dad comes down, and I'm like, Dad, isn't this great? He's like, yeah, he's like, I go, did you ever take? And I couldn't remember. He's like, no. He's like, I never took. He was a huge Sox fan. He wouldn't even take me to the Cub games. My mom would. Or I would take the L. We got old enough to do it ourselves, right? Which is crazy. Right. Like now, we're like 9 years old, taking the L down there, but.
I didn't know your dad was. I forgot your dad was a huge Sox fan. There was a lot like that.
He grew up on the South Side, so he was all Sox, and he would take me to those games, and that was like, oh my God, think of the difference. You got Andy the Clown at the Sox games back then, and like just a totally different atmosphere, right?
Complete.
The Sox fans. Complete. Well, remember you got a ball. Remember you and I went to that game at Comiskey, and we got a ball.
Oh, you caught the ball.
You caught it. No. I think I stopped it. I think you grabbed it. And you grabbed it, and then we spilled our beer on the lady in front of it. I think we gave her the ball.
We did give her the ball.
We spilled our drink on her.
It hit you square in the hand. Yeah, you took the front of it, and then I got it. Yeah, that's right. I remember it was great. Bill Murray said a great thing about watching when we were younger. You watch the Cub game on GN, you're like, it looked great. I mean, obviously just the atmosphere. And then you watch the Sox game at night on 32, and Bill Murray said something to the fact, it was like you're watching a third world country. Like, where is this ballpark located?
Oh, there was like fights in the stands and stuff, and I was like, what?
Oh, it was crazy.
I was like,
yeah,
I wouldn't leave my dad's side.
When my dad got traded to the White Sox Park, me and Ronnie would roam. You'd be like, hey, stay inside, boys. We had free reign at Wrigley Field. The Sox are a little different, man. It was, that was, but and seat cushion. I remember seat cushion night. They went nuts, threw the seat cushions on the field, banging it, Then they gave like bat day. I'm like, what are you giving bat out in this place?
Yeah, that was not well thought out, I don't think.
Oh, that's so classic, man. But, I remember seeing a picture not too long ago, like a year ago, someone put on Facebook of me, you, Ray Kleiman, I think it was Jimmy Holder, Mike Dolphin. We're all standing on Ray Kleiman's driveway, and I think Jamie Murphy. And I'm like, oh my God, you could pick us out still. I could pick out Pat Walsh. You were always the biggest guy, and yet you're a year younger. I'm like, there's Pat.
Oh my God. Yeah. Bonnie Glenn crew over there. Right?
Yeah, man. Yeah. Well, that was right next to Lions School. I mean, literally, you guys can walk.
Right.
I mean, Lions is right there in Ray's backyard, Ray Kleiman's backyard. So, buddy, well, great talking to you, man.
Hey, thanks for calling, buddy.
Been a long time, and I hope to get to see you when I get into. I might come into Chicago in August. I'm not sure. I'll let you know if I am, man. So
please do.
But keep in touch, Pat. Great talking with you.
All right. You too. Take care, buddy.
All right. See you, pal. Bye. Love you, bud.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to our show, and special thanks to our cool Crackerjacks, Scott Nelson, Jim McCauley, Debbie Foley, Sherry Matarisi, Terry O'Brien, Gary Tallman, Anne-Marie Pascule, Jim Muleschlegel, Liz Rutherford, and Mac McPhillamy.
This show is made possible because of all of them and all of our subscribers. If you want to support the show and be a cool Crackerjack yourself,
come on,
subscribe on our Patreon page.
Cool Crackerjack.
Click the link below this episode or go to the Patreon tab on our website, www.peanutspopcornandcrackerjacks.com.
Yeah, and remember to click the follow button for the next episode and leave a review on Apple Podcast or Spotify or YouTube or, just leave a review.
And don't hesitate to write. Give us suggestions. Tell us how you're liking the show. Email jeff.ppcpodcast@gmail.com.
Love to get your emails. And for my closing quote, 90% of baseball is mental. The other half is physical. Yogi Berra.
Toodaloo.
SantoFilms.com, the place to buy This Old Cub DVDs, posters, and This Old Cub t-shirts. Get yourself one now at SantoFilms.com.